West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
Yes, you do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? It's good to see you today. This is Tuesday, May 12th. It's the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and we are there with you wherever you are in this great land of ours, all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast and all stops in between. We're here with the news of the day. Wherever it's happening, we're on top of it. We'll tell you what's going on. You tell us what it all means to you. We're here with you, of course, on Free Speech TV, nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Look forward to hearing from you with your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS and with your comments on the social media, either on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Yes, indeed, big vote today in the Senate on President Obama's trade bill, the so-called TPP. The president and Republicans all support it. The president, however, needs some Democratic votes in order to get that passed. Not sure he's going to have them in the Senate, but it's going to be a lot harder to get them if the bill passes the Senate, a lot harder to get them from Democrats in the House. Meanwhile, up in Boston, Patriots reeling today after getting socked with a double whammy yesterday on the Deflategate scandal, lowering the air pressure in those footballs, remember, in that big game against the Colts. Tom Brady suspended for 4 games. That's going to, without pay. That's going to cost him $2 million. And the Patriots having to pay a $1 million fine. Was that too severe, or did they get just what they deserved? Let's talk about it at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday, May 12th. Lots to talk about.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face.
On your face.
On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place.
Okay.
So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team.
Uh-huh.
So they regenerated the idea of
I see.
activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Uh-huh. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with,
Uh-huh.
and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Tom Brady kicked in the balls. That's what the New York Daily News headline says. Yep, suspended for 4 games. Hello, everybody. Wow. Can't break the rules and get away with it anymore in the NFL. Unless you beat your wife, then you're allowed to get away with it. It is Tuesday, May 12. Here we go for another 3 hours of the Bill Press Show, our daily town hall where we tell you what's going on and you tell us what it all means to you. Our conversation over the news of the day with our team here in Washington, D.C., and our guests, and of course all of you all around the country. Whether you're listening on your local Progressive Talk radio station, and we welcome you, and so glad to see you this morning. Whether you're watching on Free Speech TV or nationwide or worldwide, watching us on our video stream, welcome to the program. This Tuesday, we want to hear from you by phone at 866-55-PRESS. We want to hear your comments and read your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. That's what friends are for. Here we go. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
All right.
How we doing?
Off on a Tuesday. Big Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Jamie Benson has got the phones covered. Ready to hear from you at 866-55-PRESS and Cyprian Bolding. He is here in between sports events as our videographer on the Bill Press. So speaking of sports, yes, we will talk about the Patriots. Our Wizards didn't do too well last night.
No, they didn't.
But the Nats, man, Arizona. Diamondbacks will be glad to see the Nats leave town after the shellacking they got last night. But maybe even bigger than the news about the Patriots' fine and Tom Brady's suspension yesterday was the news that maybe nation's number one sports fan, at least in terms of how much he eats at games, turns out to be Chris Christie.
This is crazy.
Yeah. So in 5 years he's been governor. The governors get a certain allocation of money that they can spend for their own entertaining they have to do as governor. Mm-hmm. So
it's business, of course, right? Business.
Of course. It's taxpayer dollars, too. So Chris Christie has spent $300,000 on booze, food, and desserts that he has given away as governor, of which $82,000 were spent at Giants games and Mets games. $82,000. That's a lot of Dodger dogs. You know what I mean?
To be fair, I think the price of a beer has gotten up to be about $70 for baseball games.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, it is. You must admit, Dodger dogs and beer, they're not that cheap at games.
They're not
but
cheap.
Still. But $82,000 worth. Yeah. But that was just for him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That doesn't count.
At one game.
That doesn't count what he gave his guests away, though. Anyhow, it's bad news when late night comics get a hold of it, like Conan O'Brien last night.
A new report just came out. It reveals that New Jersey Governor Chris Christie spent over $82,000 on food at NFL games.
Yep.
$82,000. Yeah. Christie defended himself, saying, "Hey, both of those games went into overtime." I cannot be.
So that's it. Now we understand it. Sounds like a lot of money till you realize both games went into overtime. So, yeah, not that bad, right? All right, lots going on today. Indeed, Arthur. It's Tuesday. So it's Arthur Day, Arthur Delaney, Igor Day, Igor Volsky. They'll both be along as well. We'll jump up to Boston. The defense resting its case yesterday. How well did they do? What can we expect? And the Sierra Club and environmentalists generally not happy with the Obama administration's announcement yesterday. They're going to open up the Arctic Ocean for offshore drilling. Yeah, that worked out so well in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll see how it happens, how it goes up in Alaska. Sierra Club will be sending a representative to talk about that. And, yes, President Obama taking off after Elizabeth Warren. Who's right, who's wrong? But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We go to Philadelphia, where I'd like to introduce you to my new hero.
Hi.
His name is Yuri Monson. He lives in an assisted living facility outside of Philadelphia, but he just lost his housing subsidy there in the assisted living facility because...
Smoking pot.
No, officials found a prostitute underneath his bed. He tried to hide the woman.
That's right. You always hide your prostitute,
under his
Peter.
bed. Yeah, right? Mr. Monson has been described as a, quote, more mobile gentleman at the assisted living facility, so he would also go on booze runs for the people who lived in the facility who couldn't leave. So he would go out and go buy liquor and beer for those people who were not quite as mobile. He was busted. He was found out, and his subsidy was taken away.
I want to know.
Free Yuri Monson.
Yeah,
what I said.
yeah. But I don't know. Did he get the senior rate? Did he get the AARP rate?
I don't know if he had his card on him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
I feel good for him.
Yeah, look, he's up there and still alive and kicking.
My grandmother Press, God rest her soul, she was in a nursing home and she lived to be 103. So this was she was maybe like 100. She was busted for smoking in her bathroom.
Was she really?
Yeah.
Really?
I said, Grandma, yes,
I know,
good
right?
for you.
I feel good about that.
Still a rebel.
Still breaking the law. I like it. How about this story? Subway, the sandwich store, is rolling out a new security system, and it is weird. The Intruder Security System is what it's called. It's produced by a company called Select DNA, has already been implemented in all of the Knoxville, Tennessee Subway stores, and here's how it works. If the store is robbed, there is a button that someone behind the register pushes that sprays the thief with DNA on their way out of the door. It's positioned above the exit. So when they leave, it just blasts them with traceable DNA. Every store will have their own unique DNA, and it will show up under a black light, and it's traceable. Is that weird?
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like it at all.
No. I mean, it could go off accidentally, or you could hit the wrong person.
Sure.
What if I'm sure if they spray it, there are other people around.
Yeah.
Sprayable DNA?
Sprayable
That's
DNA.
strange.
Yeah.
And a new book about Elon Musk is coming out by Bloomberg technology reporter Ashley Vance. You know, Elon Musk is the brains behind Tesla Motors, SpaceX. Turns out he's not the greatest boss in the world. Vance got a copy of an email that Musk reportedly sent to a Tesla employee who wasn't at work so that he could be there for the birth of his first child. Musk wrote the man, quote, "Having a child is no excuse. I am extremely disappointed. You need to figure out where your priorities are. We are changing the world and changing history, and you either commit or you don't." End quote.
Yeah, I think this guy's taking himself a little too seriously.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Smart guy can maybe polish up his people skills.
Right. And maybe work on his priorities, too, because he's got them ass backwards. Yes, indeed. Hey, there are trade wars going on here in the nation's capital today, and in fact, really today, because there's a big vote in the Senate on the president's proposal for the TPP, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the Trans-Pacific Authority. It goes under different names, but basically, the president trying to adopt and work out a new trade deal with 12 Asian nations. We've talked about this a lot. But the first step in that is what the president is asking Congress for, is fast-track authority, meaning, and other presidents have had it, other presidents have been ceded this authority by the Congress, I think wrongfully so, the authority where the president can make the deal on his own with his trade representative, Congress having no say in that deal, either before or after the president, under fast-track authority, would make the deal, and then Congress would have the opportunity to vote thumbs up or thumbs down. They couldn't amend it. They couldn't delay it. They couldn't do anything to it, just thumbs up or thumbs down. So that's what the president is asking for. It comes up for a vote today. Very, very interesting in the Senate. Very interesting, the politics of it, because Republicans who have been, they actually sued the president, remember, for using too much executive authority on immigration, they allege, or on Obamacare, they allege, now want to give President Obama all the executive authority he's asking for when it comes to the trade deal. But with the Republicans alone, the president doesn't have enough votes to get it passed. He needs Democratic votes, and that's where he is stuck, because a lot of Democrats in Congress are not comfortable with this trade deal. First of all, they think Congress should have more of a voice. Second, they think there have to be environmental and labor protections in this legislation, which they're not sure are there. Remember, Larry Cohen from the Communication Workers Union has been in studio talking to us about this. The president of CWA, Rosa DeLauro, is leading the charge against it in the House. Bernie Sanders and Sherrod Brown and Elizabeth Warren leading the charge against it in the Senate. And the other reason that the progressives are not happy with it is because this legislation, to the extent we know what's in it so far, or this trade deal, would set up a special court which would be the representatives of which would come from, be representatives of major corporations, this special tribunal to which companies that are not happy with the laws of a particular country could protest, and that tribunal would have the right to maybe overturn the laws of another sovereign country on behalf of big corporations. That's wrong, and consumers don't have the same recourse to any appeal at all. So for all kinds of reasons, the Democrats oppose it, and President Obama has really gone out after the Democrats, particularly, here's where the war is right now. It's between President Obama and the Democrats in the House and in the Senate, especially President Obama versus Elizabeth Warren. Now, of course, Elizabeth Warren, she's been out there as, again, probably the number one critic of the TPP. Here she is just a couple of weeks ago, April 22nd, at a big rally on the Capitol lawn.
No more secret trade deals. Are you ready to fight? No more secret deals. No more special deals for multinational corporations. Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to fight any more deals that say we're going to help the rich get richer and leave everyone else behind? Are you ready to fight that?
Well, there she is. So no doubt she is out there, and President Obama doesn't like it. Doesn't like it at all. He gave an interview out at Nike headquarters Friday to Matt Bai of Yahoo News, and Matt says, and one other charge Elizabeth has said is that she's afraid this could undermine the very weak provisions, but at least they're there, some restrictions on Wall Street passed in Dodd-Frank. Here's Matt Bai and the president.
Senator Warren said this week this pact could be used to roll back Dodd-Frank, which
she's absolutely wrong.
President doesn't wait. He just jumps in. No, she's wrong. And he says, what's up with that logic?
Think about the logic of that, right? The notion that I had this massive fight with Wall Street to make sure that we don't repeat what happened in 2007, 2008. And then I sign a provision that would unravel it. I'd have to be pretty stupid.
You can see this is really, this has gotten under his skin, no doubt about it. And then he makes it maybe the ultimate insult to Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth is a politician like everybody else, and she's got a voice that she wants to get out there. And I understand that, and on most issues, she and I deeply agree. On this one, though, her arguments don't stand the test of fact and scrutiny.
Yeah, she's just a politician like everybody else. What does he think he is, right? Hello, But think about that. Just a politician. She's a politician like everybody else. What? So, does that mean she's a politician? You can't trust her? She's a politician, therefore she's lying? What is he really saying
his point?
Here? What is his point? Right. I mean, let's deal with the facts, not with the personal attacks, right? I mean, does that mean that Rosa DeLauro, Sherrod Brown, Bernie Sanders, Keith Ellison, you name them, there are more and more and more of them, right? That they're all just politicians? Harry Reid? So you can't believe anything they say? Is that what the president is saying? I think the person, look, Elizabeth Warren has come back and she said to the president, okay, Mr. President, you and I disagree on this. Let's find out who's right and who's wrong. And she suggested two things. Number one, let's make this deal public. Release it, make it public. You and I don't know what's in it because we can't see it. Members of Congress really don't know what's in it because they haven't been at the table. The only thing they can do, and this is important to know, is they can walk into a room in the Capitol with no notes, no paper, no pen, no cell phone, no recorder, no staff, no expert, no nothing themselves, and sit there and read this document, which is some thousands of pages, and they can read it. And they're expected to remember and know everything that's in it like that. So Elizabeth Warren has said, Mr. President, here's the way we resolve this. Open it up, release the document so everybody can read it and know what's in it and what's not in it. And how about a debate? Let's have a debate. Others have suggested that. The president really thinks Elizabeth is wrong. Why doesn't the president debate Elizabeth Warren, just like, remember, Al Gore debated Ross Perot on Larry King Live on NAFTA?
That's right.
Smash the ashtray.
That's right.
I forget what that was all about. Yeah. So here's my question. It's simple today on this TPP. Who's right, who's wrong? It's Elizabeth Warren versus President Obama. Who's right, who's wrong? Which one do you trust on TPP? You tell me. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see, you have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water. We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans. Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now. Ban fracking now. Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour. Yes, it has. It's gotten ugly. It's gotten really personal and not pretty between President Obama and Elizabeth Warren. President not happy that Elizabeth Warren particularly is out there. He thinks all the Democrats are wrong who oppose this trade deal, and especially he doesn't like Elizabeth Warren, I think because she's so effective.
It's certainly gotten a lot more attention than it would have.
Right.
You know?
How about it? Who's right, who's wrong? Don's calling from North Little Rock, Arkansas. What do you say, Don?
Oh, Elizabeth Warren is right. President Obama is wrong. Those workers ought to make 56 cents an hour. They can't afford to buy anything from us. We're going to do all the buying. They're going to do the selling. We're going to do the jobs.
Yeah, another bad trade deal, right, Don?
Yes, sir. I mean, it is. The president wrong on this one.
I think he is. Yeah. Sorry, Don. Didn't mean to cut you off there. Yeah, I think he is too, and I think the president ought to maybe sit down and listen to his critics instead of just blasting them, because I think they've got some very legitimate concerns. Look, we've been through several of these trade deals already, right? We're still American jobs lost under NAFTA. American wages depressed under NAFTA, and we want to go into another trade deal without having those protections built in. Trade deal, yes, but not a trade deal like NAFTA. Elizabeth Warren or President Obama, who's right, who's wrong. Arthur Delaney, next.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, May 12, indeed, it is. The Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio in Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFG, President J. David Cox. They're the ones who keep our government, different federal agencies across the board and across the country. We salute them for their good work and their sponsorship of the show, and you can find out more about their all the things that they're up to at afge.org, and particularly their battle to get a decent, talk about minimum wage, to get a decent wage for federal employees across the board. Again, afge.org. When it comes to working class Americans, he is here as their champion at Huffington Post, Arthur Delaney, in studio with us because it's Tuesday, and of course he's here. Hello, Arthur.
Good morning.
We don't take anything for granted. We thank you for coming in again today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we are in the middle of a conversation here. You've seen the war of words back and forth between President Obama and particularly Elizabeth Warren, Democrats in general in Congress, but particularly Elizabeth Warren, over the TPP, and the president saying Friday about Elizabeth Warren, she's just a politician like everybody else. So basically,
she reads the Huffington Post too much. That's what Obama thinks.
Yeah, there it is. Who's right, who's wrong in this battle?
Well, we don't know what's in the TPP. It's a totally secretive deal, and I think that is one of Elizabeth Warren's key points. So it's hard to say that she's wrong. And
in fact, yesterday at our briefing, when this came up, at least if we can find that, Josh Earnest, he has said this several times, but in response to Elizabeth Warren's complaints.
If Senator Warren is wondering what she's voting on, then she can walk over to the room that has been established on Capitol Hill by the U.S. Trade Representative, and she can read the latest version of the negotiated document. So there is no need for this false criticism.
Now, first thing, I forget which reporter pointed out to Josh, said, Elizabeth Warren says she actually did go in that room and did read the entire document. Did you know that, Josh? And he said, oh, no, I didn't know that. Number one. But number two, I mean, so they can go into this room and read this document. What is it, 1,500 pages? 2,000? I don't know how many.
Yeah, take a seat.
Yeah, but no cell phone, no notes, no paper, no staff, no nobody. This is hardly making it.
You're free to read the trade agreement whenever you like.
Yeah, right. But you and I can't read it, for example.
Well, we're not allowed in the room, Bill.
No, that's what I mean. So it's not a public document, right? The idea that anybody can read it who wants to is just wrong.
A lot of what the public knows about it has come from leaks, and that is what people have had to go on, and that is where we get the notions of corporations being allowed to press their case against nations whose laws infringe their profits, essentially. So
the other thing that the White House said yesterday, Josh said, is the reason we won't release it to you, meaning to the media, to you and me, is because it's just a draft. It's not a finished document yet. Which I find also to be a phony argument. Legislation that's pending in Congress, you can read it. It's a draft.
The reason they won't release it, Bill, is because what if you don't like it? They don't want to disappoint you.
Right, exactly. They don't want to give people ammunition or
they don't want, and that's the whole dynamic. They don't want Congress to weigh it down with changes, because they, it's not about having people read it and change it.
Is the president going to have the votes?
That's actually not clear. I had thought so earlier this year, but now with some of the populist Republicans disliking it and Democrats being bolder, it's not clear at all. And both House and Senate are a problem.
Yeah, and the big vote in the Senate is today. Let's take one more call on this before we move along. Sherry, Chicago, WCPT in Chicago. Hello, Sherry.
Good morning, everyone. I accept what you say 100% a few minutes ago when you said that this is getting crazy. And we have such a long way to go before the election, but it's gotten so wild. As far as Warren and Obama, for them to have the information and not be able to reveal the information to the American people is just unbelievable, but I would have to lean toward the president. It reminds me of Iraq and Bush and Cheney.
Oh, jeez.
It really does, because of the secrecy involved, but and Warren is just playing a chess game. I know what she's doing. So I hope everybody else does. But I'd have to go with the president on the TPP.
It reminds you of the Iraq War, but you'd go with the president.
Right. Yeah, Sherry, if you make that comparison to the Iraq War and the secrecy around the Iraq War, then all the more reason why I would go with Elizabeth. I hear you, Sherry, and, loyalty counts for a lot in politics, but I think of this one. Again, I don't know what's in the document. You don't. Nobody really, really does. But I think Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, Bernie Sanders, and the others are raising some very, very important questions. We thought Ebola as a story was dead until we read Arthur Delaney back to the story today.
Are you questioning our editorial judgment?
No, I'm just saying.
In a backhanded way.
You've got some big news about Ebola.
Well, the World Health Organization has declared the West African nation of Liberia Ebola-free. Liberia was the epicenter of an Ebola outbreak.
How did they do it?
How did they do it? Well, there are a lot of things, but a key thing in Liberia was changing some social customs with regard to how they would bury people and touching them, getting away from dead bodies infected with the disease. But anyway, last fall, at one point, the estimate was there would be 1 million Ebola infections in West Africa by January. And now Liberia is Ebola-free. Ebola is just gone as a story, which is incredible if you can just try to think about the hysteria around it in the fall.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
It was crazy.
It was an all-consuming madness. Or maybe not madness. It was just a massive story.
No, total. It was total panic, particularly all centered around Dallas. Remember, I went out to Dallas in the middle of that whole thing. And there was more news about Ebola outside of Dallas than there was in Dallas. I found Dallas life was going on. There were a couple of people at the hospital who were quarantined, maybe a dozen or more at one point. But now, so it's amazing how this has turned around. But it wasn't just Liberia. There were 2 other countries, weren't there, where there was a lot of cases of Ebola?
Yeah, one was Guinea, and the other nation in West Africa that was stricken with Ebola was...
You tell me. You're the Ebola reporter.
I'm having a bit of a brain fart at the moment.
Are they Ebola-free, too, is my question. Do we know?
There are still a handful of cases, but the key thing is Liberia was the epicenter here. And so we had Ron Klain, the Ebola czar, came to the Huffington Post, and he's already not the Ebola czar anymore.
I was going to say, what's his title now?
Well, you know what?
He's back in the private sector.
Back in the private sector, yeah, right. I mean, one might say he did his job and left, but the fact is he got in there and things turned around so fast they didn't need him anymore.
Well, yeah, and it was largely because it was dying down in West Africa. But the administration did a lot of things to help that, and a key thing was encouraging volunteers, and that was contentious at the time because people wanted a travel ban because in a easy to understand way that prevents Ebola from coming here because you ban travel. And Ron Klain is like, what? Remember, there weren't even direct flights at the time. And instead, they just said, listen, we're going to do what our scientists say.
The knee-jerk reaction on the part of so many idiot politicians at the time was really embarrassing. Somebody ought to go back and do a montage of some of these, particularly Republicans, coming out.
Well, you had
all these
Chris
things.
Christie and Andrew Cuomo saying we've got to ban travel and anyone coming back, quarantine them, and Chris Christie did that to it.
I know, to this nun,
Casey Hickox.
And then the governor of Maine treated her the same way. You're right. Governor Cuomo even got into it. I mean, it was crazy.
Ron Klain was saying, out of the 50 governors followed our protocol. But this was also partly so crazy because there was an election at the time. But people ought to remember, we listened to the scientists and our strategy worked. Not a single U.S. citizen died from Ebola.
Good point. And, you have to really give credit to Dr. Fauci at the
NIH
and
Tom Frieden at the CDC.
And down at the CDC, the 2 of them, great leadership on this issue. So we can salute that. And now, we need to talk about the job numbers when we come back, Arthur, and also Wisconsin pushing a food stamp ban on shellfish.
Yes.
Oh, my God. All these kinds of...
Crustaceans.
I don't know. It just seems that every week is another state that comes up with another way to crack down on the food stamp program. Arthur Delaney is here from Huffington Post. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Right now, big banking, software, pharmaceutical, and tobacco corporations are lobbying governments from 12 countries to negotiate the dirtiest deal you've never heard of. There's a reason you haven't heard of the TPP or Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are some major corporations and government officials that don't want you to know what's in the deal. For one, our food safety standards, environmental protections, and local labor laws could all be threatened under the TPP. We could all be forced to pay significantly more for the medicines we need, and you could be fined or even sent to jail for downloading copyrighted content on the internet. How will they know if you do it? Because your internet service providers could be required to watch your online activity. But that's not the scariest part. The TPP gives corporations the power to sue our government in secret tribunals over any law or regulation they claim affects their expected future profits. Don't believe it? It's already happening. Recently, after our government said an American pharma corporation's drug price-raising patents were not legit, the firm sued Canadian taxpayers for a staggering $500 million. And a U.S. fracking company sued us when the Quebec government put a moratorium on shale gas development to study its impacts. These deals will stop us from making our own common sense laws for fear of lawsuits. Thankfully, not everyone is willing to sign on the dotted line just yet. In fact, most government officials still have no idea what they're even signing on to, for good reason. In the U.S., Democrats and Republicans alike are uniting to oppose a fast tracking of the TPP, demanding open debates and negotiations instead. Elected officials in Canada and everywhere should be doing this, and it's our job to make sure they start showing some backbone. Here's the deal. Without a strong public outcry, politicians will only hear the concerns of multinational corporations. And once the TPP is signed, it's here forever. There's no expiration date and no separation clause. This dirty deal has been deliberately branded as a free trade agreement. It is anything but free for people like you and me. And it's not really about trade. It could cost us our internet freedom, labor rights, access to affordable medicine, the safety of our food, and protections that keep our water and air clean. Nobody wants to be struck with a backroom deal we don't want and never voted for. Find out more, speak up, and spread the word.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right, here we go. 11 minutes before the top of the hour with Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com, in studio with us. 223,000 new jobs in April, new private sector jobs, and the unemployment rate bouncing, trickling down to 5.4%. Your take on it?
a little disappointing. Not for
really
those
over
headline numbers.
200,000?
Well, that's would be a kind of a big number, except that the previous month's numbers went down. In March, it was only 85,000 jobs.
Yeah.
So the moving average over a period of months it's about 125,000 per month, which is lower than this time last year. So that's a little disappointing. Dean Baker, an economist at Center for Economic and Policy Research, was saying, things were slower in March because it was so cold. We would have wanted to see much bigger numbers to make up for that, pent up job activity, and it didn't quite happen in his estimates. So
5.4 is just about what economists say is normal, right?
Yeah, it's really good. And there are fewer unemployed people, a lot fewer long-term unemployed, almost 1 million from this time last year, and it's only 2.5 million. The percentage of long-term jobless is approaching a more normal level. So things are continuing to look better. Eventually, you'd expect people to start making more money as there are fewer, reserves trying to get every job. So overall, a good story.
Right. Now, if I live in Wisconsin, why shouldn't I be able to buy mussels or clams with my food stamps?
That is the $64,000 question in Wisconsin right now. Mussels, clams, shellfish, because those things are delicacies. Or at least that is how they are viewed in the political tradition of bashing what people buy with food stamps.
So this is the Wisconsin legislature that is considering this. So your story.
Yeah, it's not so much mussels and clams as crab and lobster.
Oh,
lobsters and crab legs. Which, in Wisconsin are just a huge thing. Kansas banned cruises from welfare.
Right. Okay.
So Wisconsin is tackling their local food stamp recipients gorging themselves on Wisconsin crab and lobster.
Yeah. I for one, am happy to know that people on food stamps are not using them to buy lobsters in Wisconsin.
I have data. You remember last week we talked about new report from the USDA detailing the eating and diet nutrition of people on food stamps. That report also tells us what amount of shellfish they eat. Do you want to know? Do you want to know how much shellfish they eat? It's 3%.
3%.
But poor people who aren't on food stamps, it's above 4%. Wealthier people who don't qualify for food stamps, 3.9%. If anything, people on food stamps are low on shellfish, and it needs to be brought up. So this legislation is going counter to that. Paul LePage in Maine also, they're also pursuing what you can buy restrictions.
Well, we'll talk about that next time, but I can't let you come in today without giving you a chance to comment on Tom Brady and the Patriots. Did they get what they deserved?
No, this is ridiculous. Tom Brady should go galt and just quit. I'd say, fine, losers. You don't want me to play? You don't want the best player to be rewarded for being the best? I quit. I'm going to let the rest of the world just loaf until it dies.
You don't want me to be rewarded for breaking the rules?
I mean, don't give the teams control of the ball. What kind of the NFL should suspend itself. So you let the teams control the game ball? And then you're mad because
there is that's a big flaw.
They deflate it imperceptibly, and then they still win anyway, massively in this game against the Colts. That is really at issue, even though I know they assume that this is a pattern but can't prove it. They still win anyway, and now you're gonna whine and cry. Just America's worst impulse.
There he is, Arthur Delaney. He defends the Patriots, but he did get rid of Ebola. So we can't. You got to give him credit for something. Hey, Arthur, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
See you next Tuesday.
All right, you got it. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You got it. Here we are, ready for hour number 2 with Igor Volsky at the top of the next hour.
Big announcement, Bill.
Uh-oh.
Today's the day that President Obama announces that his presidential library is going to the south side of Chicago.
Absolutely.
It's going to be called the Barack Obama Presidential Center. We'll have an archival library, a museum, an academic institute, and the offices of the Barack Obama Foundation will be relocated to New York, which were already in Chicago. So it's all coming together for his post-presidential plan.
You know, the library had to go to the south side of Chicago. Yeah, that's where it belongs, and that's good for them,
This
good for him.
is
Igor
the
Volsky
Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you say, friends and neighbors? It's good to see you today. This is Tuesday, May 12. It's the Bill Press Show. We are here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and we are there with you wherever you are in this great land of ours, all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast and all stops in between. We're here with the news of the day. Wherever it's happening, we're on top of it. We'll tell you what's going on. You tell us what it all means to you. We're here with you, of course, on Free Speech TV, nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR TV. Look forward to hearing from you. with your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS and with your comments on the social media, either on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Yes, indeed. Big vote today in the Senate on President Obama's trade bill, the so-called TPP. The president and Republicans all support it. The president, however, needs some Democratic votes in order to get that passed. Not sure he's going to have them in the Senate, but it's going to be a lot harder to get them if the bill passes the Senate, a lot harder to get them from Democrats in the House. Meanwhile, up in Boston, Patriots reeling today after getting socked with a double whammy yesterday on the Deflategate scandal, lowering the air pressure in those footballs, remember, in that big game against the Colts. Tom Brady suspended for 4 games. That's going to, without pay, that's going to cost him $2 million. And the Patriots having to pay a $1 million fine. Was that too severe, or did they get just what they deserved? Let's talk about it at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday, May 12th. Lots to talk about.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do,
because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Kicked in the balls. That's what the New York Daily News says about Tom Brady. I love repeating that headline.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning, everybody. So writes the New York Daily News. So screams the New York Daily News.
But they were
today.
deflated, so maybe it hurt less. I don't know.
God. On a Tuesday, May 12, we say hello, 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 and welcome to the Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital. You are somewhere there in this great land of ours, and we welcome you to the program. Wherever you happen to be, we're there with you on your local progressive talk radio station. We're there with you on Free Speech TV worldwide. Joining you on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. If it's Tuesday, it's got to be Igor Volsky, and here he is. I don't know what your new title is. I can't get it straight now.
Let me tell you, Bill. It's a little long. It's how much time do we have? It's director of video and contributing editor for Think Progress. Still with Think Progress. It's 2 titles. I got a lot of balls in the air this time around. Yeah.
He is the man in charge at Think Progress. That's what we think.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Good enough.
It has been declared.
It's been declared.
And it's nice to have you back, Igor.
Thank you.
On this Tuesday, we're joining the team here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Hey. Jamie Benson. On the phones at 866-55-PRESS, ready to take your calls. Keep him busy so he doesn't fall asleep at the switch like he usually does. Cyprian Balding.
It's early. You start early.
We don't want Cyprian falling asleep, otherwise everything would go black.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But he's got the lights on and the camera's going on the video stream. And there's, we've all been to the White House, right? I mean, and I just want to say.
Well, I mean, not everybody's been to the White House.
You've been there. I've
been there, yes, but
okay. This crowd, right? And we all know, look, when you go to the White House, you want to take a souvenir. Okay. Oh. I want you. It's not called stealing when it's a White House. Because
where are you going with this?
What are you talking about?
But not everybody goes there with an urge to steal something.
I'm going with this. Where I'm going is, I think Barbara Waters is getting a bad rap. Because she admits that she stole a little something from the White House. Conan O'Brien talked about it last night.
Barbara Walters admitted to stealing an artifact from the White House. Isn't that cool? Yeah. She said, I was young and I didn't think President Lincoln would mind.
But I always walk out of the White House with something. Not at
what are you doing?
What? Do you bring a big purse? What do you?
Not at the briefings. Not every day at the briefings. But when
at least it's not every day. At least it's not every day. Wow.
We are on record here.
How do you restrain yourself?
Look right into the camera when you say that, so that they can catalog it easier for evidence.
When I go to social events at the White House, a towel
What?
Are you serious?
They're paper towels.
Why would you take a paper towel? Are you kidding?
They expect you to take them.
Do you take the toilet paper too?
No.
Are you a crazy person? You take paper towels?
Yes.
I have to say, I have been to a White House event with.
I would have known to see you at the White House. Just like sneaking some paper towels into your jacket.
Just one.
Listen, I have been to the White House.
Or napkins. Paper napkins.
I've been to the White House with Bill and Carol Press. We've been there together.
Yes, we have.
We have. And I can say from experience, it's more than paper towels.
Oh, no.
I wasn't going to say anything, but now that we're bringing it up, that's all I'll say.
No silverware.
Oh, man.
No flowers. No china. Paper towels. My point is.
And what do you do with them? Why? I mean, do you not have any?
So to be clear, the paper towels have
a presidential
seal and the White House.
Yeah.
I
can show your friends. You can show your kids. You can, that's all.
I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's stealing, but
I'm saying is I'm defending Barbara Waller. Okay. It's not stealing. They expect you to take them. That's why they leave them out.
So how large is your collection now? Because you've been to the White House a lot.
I could have a dinner party with just stuff from the White House. Okay, there we go. I don't know how we got off on that. I was defending Barbara. So Igor is here. A little bit later, we're going to jump up to Boston and get the latest on the Shanaev trial and talk to the Sierra Club. They're not happy with, and most environmentalists aren't, with President Obama. The Obama administration's announcement yesterday on new drilling in the Arctic Ocean. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Good luck topping that one.
Yeah.
I'll never get invited back.
Yeah, right.
Now.
All right, here are a couple of other stories making news. I like a good politics story, so here's a good politics story for you. We go to Flint, Michigan, where there was a screw-up with the filing for the mayoral candidates in Flint, Michigan. So this means that all of the candidates have to run as write-ins. It's just a little glitch, but what this means is anybody can run for mayor. And so defense lawyer Michael Ewing took advantage of this screw-up, and he has entered his 1-year-old pig, Giggles, as a write-in for the upcoming mayoral race. So Giggles is in. But things took a nasty turn the other day with another city councilman was running for mayor by the name of Wantwaz Davis said not only is he going to beat Giggles in the mayoral race, he's going to eat him if he wins. He's going to buy Giggles and slaughter, butcher, and eat Giggles the pig.
Whoa.
The things are getting nasty.
Yeah, he's going to eat his opponent alive, or eat his opponent, so, you know.
You know, the problem is, there are people, I'm sure some people in Flint, Michigan, with names that would be very hard to spell. This is an unfair advantage.
Yeah, right.
Or disadvantage for people. No, I'm not talking about Giggles.
Giggles the pig.
What was this guy's name?
Wantwaz Davis.
Oh, yes. Spell that.
It's spelled. Yeah. It's the traditional way.
That's one does.
Wantwaz.
Wantwaz.
Wantwaz. This is a crazy story. So yesterday, Fox had their upfronts for new TV shows that are coming out. And one of the TV shows that they're going to be doing is
American Idol?
Well, no, we know right. American Idol is gone. American Idol will be leaving after next season. But a new show is coming to FX called American Crime Story. It is based on Jeffrey Toobin's book about the O.J. Simpson trial. John Travolta will be playing Robert Shapiro.
Oh, my God.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Travolta?
John Travolta. Cuba Gooding Jr., David Schwimmer, and Sarah Paulson have all signed on to star on this new series, again, called American Crime Story.
Series
it's a
about
series.
The trial?
It's a series about the trial. I'm not sure where they're going to go from here because we know how that story ends, but you can expect to see that next season.
I can see the finale is going to be OJ's going to find the real killer.
That's right. That's right. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not opposed to riding in self-driving cars. I'm just not going to be the first person to ride in self-driving cars. Google acknowledged that over the 6 years that they've been working on self-driving car technology, they have had 11 accidents, actual accidents. So it depends on how you look at that. On one hand, there's 11 accidents. On the other hand, over the course of 6 years...
And how many cars?
That's not so bad.
How many different cars?
I'll have to look in here and see.
But the interesting thing is they didn't disclose these accidents, and California isn't really where they were tested isn't releasing any information.
They did say that the cars that were involved drove a collective 1.7 million miles of testing. Isn't that crazy?
So here are two stories that are big surprises in the news today, right? Number one, George Zimmerman was involved in another shooting incident in Florida. Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
Number 4.
And number 2...
that's his fourth accident incident. Yeah.
But number 2 surprise is that driverless cars were involved in accidents. Duh.
Yeah, shock.
I mean, I think the biggest surprise are the paper towels, the White House paper towels. I don't know. I'm still surprised.
I can't wait for later on today when the Secret Service just shows up at your door.
No.
Mr. Press, we need to get into your bathroom and kitchen. And
I can't wait till I show up at the White House gate today and they say, your hard pass has
Put your hands behind your back.
Has been revoked. Yes, indeed. Igor, let's talk about TPP. Start there. The vote today in the Senate. Does the president have the votes, and should he get it?
Oh, my goodness. It looks like he may not. Surprisingly, they were going into this 2 years ago confident they were going to have the votes. Now they need, I think, some 10 Democrats in the Senate. It's unclear what those commitments look like. In fact, even Ron Wyden, the senator from Oregon, who was a big proponent of the deal, wrote the fast-track legislation in the Senate Finance Committee, went on Warren Alney, your good friend out in California, his radio show to argue in favor of fast track. They had a big program on it a couple of weeks ago. Is now having second thoughts and saying that unless there's a companion legislation to the fast track bill that prevents currency manipulation for China, some other issues,
some worker protection
issues, some enforcement issues, labor enforcement in these TPP countries, that he may not vote for it. He may filibuster it, in fact. And so the White House, that has been doing a kind of a full court press push on this issue, is very nervous. They've gotten everyone involved, cabinet secretaries, everyone on staff, and they just may not have the votes. And to me, the TPP itself, I don't think is going to have a big impact one way or the other. The real problem here and the real debate we've never had as a country is about the consequences of globalization and who wins and who loses. And this legislation is really a proxy for that discussion.
Well, this is on the part of those Democrats who have questions about it. It's to make sure that globalization, which you can't roll back, I mean, it's here, and we have to be a leader in global trade, that the globalization is fair to American workers and to American businesses. In other words, globalization, yes, but under the right terms.
Yeah, under the right terms. And, the big question here is, on one hand, are the terms of agreement in terms of labor conditions, environmental standards that a lot of these TPP countries are going to adopt, are they enforceable? Because we know in past agreements they have not been. And there's really no mechanism to enforce them, and we don't know what that mechanism looks like in the deal because the deal is not public. And of course, the other is the arbitration tribunal, which has raised a lot of eyebrows. And in the past, not in America here. In America, we've won every arbitration hearing that has been held against the United States. In other countries like Canada and elsewhere, corporations have won. And so what does the structure look like in this new deal? Are there changes and protections to make sure that local regulations and labor laws aren't thwarted by corporations?
And the other question that a lot of people are asking, Dana Milbank has an excellent column, I think, in the Washington Post this morning about whether or not President Obama's increasingly personal attacks on Democrats, particularly Elizabeth Warren, who have raised questions about the deal, whether that is helping or hurting him round up, because it's pissing off a lot of Democrats.
It is, and I don't understand why he does this. And he had done this in the past, on a lot of the gay rights issues earlier in his administration, on Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal, some of the marriage stuff. He took criticism from the left very, very, very personally and shouted people down, and maybe not the stature of Elizabeth Warren, but other LGBT advocates, shouted them down for questioning him. And here we're seeing the same kind of behavior behavior. So I think he doesn't take criticism from his own side very well. And look, I think Elizabeth Warren, in some cases, in my mind, is kind of overstating the criticism here. But she does make a good point when she says the president can make this public, or make it public as we enter the final stages before the fast track goes through, so that we can have a real conversation about it.
Yeah, but she's just a politician.
And he's not.
No, exactly. Yeah, she's just a politician like everybody else. What's going on in Texas with same-sex marriage?
Oh, God. In Texas, they are pushing legislation. They have about, I think, 2 weeks left in their session. They're pushing legislation that would prohibit the use of taxpayer dollars to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. And they're doing this before the Supreme Court rules on the question of marriage later next month in an effort to say, hey, if the justices come down with a ruling that says our constitutional ban that we have in place in Texas is unconstitutional, this is what we're going to have in place. And you know what, federal government, if you have a problem with it, take us to court. And it's the same strategy they were using for abortion after Roe v. Wade. They've been using for some time now, closing down clinics, raising standards for clinics. This is the tactic here. It's to say, we're going to stand our ground, and you're going to make us accept marriage equality, take us to court. And it's going to take years and years and years to drag out. That's the strategy.
What the court could do is, with this current case, could say that this should be the law of the land, and then the next case they'll say, can states block it in this fashion? And they'll rule against that. So, I think it's a losing battle.
It is probably a losing battle. And in Texas, I think the support for marriage equality is split. So even there, it's not kind of not an overwhelming feeling against it.
Well, all I got to say is Texas had better watch out, because remember, we have the Jade Helm 15 military exercise underway.
They should be focused on that.
And if they go too far, we'll just take over Texas, which is what the crazy governor of Texas thinks is happening anyway.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Call out the National Guard to fight the American Army. God, I'm telling you, the black helicopters are back. Igor Volsky here. It's Tuesday. Join the fun. 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
This announcement brought to you by NeighborWorks, the ad council in this station.
Coast to coast, from Shoshone to Sierra.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We'll jump up to Boston at the half hour to check in on the latest that the defense has rested its case in the Boston Marathon bomber trial. Igor Volsky is here now from Think Progress at thinkprogress.org. Igor, we were talking about Texas just before we took a break. Before we move on from Waco, Texas, let's say hello to Chris. Hey, Chris, what do you say?
Hey, thanks for having me. I just wanted to talk about this constant hypocrisy from the right with regards to them always being the ones that are saying that they follow the Constitution and they're the constitutionalists and the liberals are anti-Constitution, and yet they're the ones that are mandating legislation for anti-abortion that's directly in contrast to Roe v. Wade, or the legislation that they're passing now, and I can't even handle it.
Yeah, right. They're the ones who say, we believe in the Constitution. That's why we want to deny some Americans their equal rights under the Constitution.
That's really something, right? Exactly. Yeah,
you're right, Chris. I mean, but we see it all the time.
All the time. If the Constitution agrees with them, great. And if they disagree with it, well, tough luck. They're going to try to change it.
In terms of journalism, someday we'll go to the Museum of Broadcasting something and watch the interview between Mark Halperin and Ted Cruz as the worst way ever to conduct an interview.
It was really shocking. This is an interview he conducted on April 30th where he asked Ted Cruz to defend and prove to him that he is, in fact, in touch with his Cuban heritage, asking him questions like, what kind of Cuban foods do you like to eat? Do you listen to Cuban music? Can you speak Spanish? Say something in Spanish. Just really incredibly embarrassing. Cruz, who I've never seen, uncomfortable on camera, was clearly uncomfortable, didn't really know how to handle it, and was shocked by that level of questioning.
What did he say? Say something to Rand Paul or
Bernie Sanders. Welcome Bernie Sanders to the race in Spanish.
Into the race.
On Espanol.
On Espanol.
On Espanol is how he says it.
Yeah.
It
was maybe borderline, if not clearly racist.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to go pretty far to make me feel bad for Ted Cruz, and I felt bad for Ted Cruz in that interview. It was
very uncomfortable for everyone. Yeah.
Well, Mark Halperin suspended once from MSNBC. Remember? Yeah.
We can't even say why.
We can't even say why. No, indeed. Okay. The way not to conduct an interview, certainly. Igor Volsky, always good to see you.
Always
Love
a pleasure.
Tuesdays because it's so much fun to have you in here. So I can't wait till next time. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming in. Boston next. What's going on up there? We'll find out.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, May 12, The Bill Press Show here from our nation's capital, reaching out to you nationwide on your local progressive talk radio station, nationwide on Free Speech TV, worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yesterday, up in Boston, the defense rested its case against the death penalty for the Boston Marathon bomber, and they ended up with kind of a surprise star guest in her testimony. Sister Helen Prejean against Prejean, I guess.
I thought it was Prejean.
Prejean against known as one of the most outspoken opponents of the death penalty. Her book was the basis for the movie way back, Dead Man Walking. Milton Valencia has been covering this trial for the Boston Globe, and he joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Milton. Good to have you with us.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
I know that you have been focused on the trial, but I would imagine if you went in any coffee shop in Boston today, they would not be talking about the Boston Marathon trial. They'd be talking about 4-game suspension, $1 million fine. As a Bostonian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's taken over our front page of the Boston Globe as well. It's, that's what everyone's talking about nowadays. It's a lot of people are surprised. It's caught people off guard. A lot of anger here in New England, if you can imagine. 4 days seems like a lot to a lot of people who've seen how the NFL has acted before, but it's they call it Deflategate, and there's still kind of hot air in this whole controversy, so it's not ending anytime soon.
Well, is the anger directed against the NFL or against Tom Brady for breaking the rules?
There's a lot of defense of Tom Brady. There's a lot of sense that where's the evidence? There's a lot of sense that where's the evidence? This wouldn't last in a court of law. So how dare you bring these defamation charges? And in that sense, even if it was, even if there was evidence of it, first of all, there's a lot of sense that there's no evidence of it, and everyone's coming to Tom Brady's defense. And again, even if there was, 4 days just seems like a lot for air in a football. And I think that's the sense. They're talking about some of the NFL's past practices, what the NFL has done before, and then just to come down with the hammer in this sense just seems a little unfair. And it comes back to, people don't like the Patriots because they're the Patriots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So Boston strong. Holding together there in support of the team. Okay, so tell us where do you think this trial goes now, and how good a job did the defense do? Their goal was really to prevent Tsarnaev from getting the death penalty, right?
Yeah, that's the defense all along. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't a death penalty case, and they've said that themselves. The government is adamant about seeking the death penalty for a terrorism trial. Defense lawyers have maintained that, they stood up on day one, March 4th, 2.5 months ago, and said it was him. There's no denying that was him in the videos. It was him who did this. It's just a matter of what his punishment should be, and that's where we are. Over the last 3 weeks, we've heard from, more than 50 witnesses over 12 days, 11 days, I'm sorry. And that's just for the death penalty trial. That's just a mini trial to determine
the sentencing part of it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's where we are. What should his punishment be? And I think both sides have got their points across. The prosecutors laid out that this was a horrific tragedy. Horrible. It was a terrorism act. A young 8-year-old died. 2 others died. An MIT police officer was shot and killed. This was horrific. And we had a doctor who said, the wounds were like what you'd see in a war zone. At the same time, the defense did what it has said it would do all along. Its talking points that, this was a horrific crime, but why did it happen? And they painted a picture of a dysfunctional immigrant family that held true to its Chechen roots. You had a young teenager who tried to find out about his family's history and find out, that history was intertwined with global jihad that kind of spurred all this. And you had an older, dominating brother that they tried to demonize while also humanizing the younger Jahar Tsarnaev.
Why?
And, go on, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, why didn't they put Tsarnaev on the stand?
That's a good question. I covered a lot of trials, and it's rare that you see a witness on the stand because, he can get his point across, but it can open him up to a lot of cross-examination as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's, he would have to stand up and say, yes, I stood there and I placed a bomb by an 8-year-old. He would never get away from explaining that. And I think that's why they brought Sister Helen Prejean, it's Prejean, by the way, brought her to the stand to kind of, to get jurors into his mind somehow. Because, again, to put him up on the stand, he would have to sit there and explain how he did this, put a bomb behind an 8-year-old boy and his younger sister and brother, and he wouldn't be able to. Jurors would have to look at him on the stand explaining that, and I don't think that would help his case at all.
Now, I happen to be against the death penalty, too. I've been thrown off a jury, a capital punishment case, because I made it clear I would never, no matter what the crime, vote for the death penalty. And so I agree with Sister Prejean on the issue, right? But when my question when I read that, her testimony yesterday, when she says that he expressed remorse, right, that nobody should have to suffer this way, it's not as good as hearing it from the man himself, is it? I guess that's a question for the jury.
That's the point, and there's a fine line. We tried to make this as clear as we could in the story, because it was crystal clear in his testimony that he was remorseful that people suffered, and he said no one should suffer like that. He was never remorseful that people died, or that he wasn't regretful for carrying out the attacks. And that's not come across from him, from any filings, and it definitely didn't even come across from Sister Prejean's testimony. Yes, he was remorseful that an 8-year-old boy had to sit there for 2 minutes dying, and that's horrific, I know, but that's what this testimony, that's what this trial has been about. But he was remorseful about the suffering, but he was never remorseful about the cause of it and his actions for it. And there's a fine line, and I think prosecutors will try to bring that in closings, and I think jurors may have, took note of that as well. Because there was very limited questioning and restrictions on her testimony, and that came across as, yes, remorseful about the suffering, keyword suffering of the victims, and no one should go through that. But that's no different than what he wrote in the boat, that innocent people die, and Islam is against killing innocent people, but American policy justifies it. And so that's no different from what he wrote in the boat. So there's a fine line between the two, and I think prosecutors are trying to draw that out.
Some of the testimony, reports of some of the testimony of some of the other witnesses I read about Milton Valencia is with us from the Boston Globe, bostonglobe.com. He's been covering the Boston Marathon bomber trial. But some of the other people I read, in their testimony about him, I think his elementary school teacher and others, they paint this picture of this kid that everybody loved, who was a lot of fun and smart, and God, like this Eagle Scout you'd want your daughter to marry or something, right?
Yeah, he was in the Best Buddies program, which partnered, high school kids with developmentally disabled kids in the school. They had a prom, between the two programs. They went out and had pizza together. It's a non-credit program. You don't get paid for it. Mm-hmm. It's a volunteer program, and there he was in pictures eating pizza in this program. He was, by all accounts, an honor student. And I think that's what makes it so tragic that you had a teacher who was saying he had a legitimate, chance to get, college credits, to get college scholarships and do well. He was taking high school math in the 8th grade. And playing soccer. He was a wrestling coach. He was captain of the captain of the wrestling team. Well, it counts a model student. And that, I think, is what is at the core of this case, is somehow this model, immigrant student who grew up in Cambridge. He's been living here since he was 8 years old. Still had these beliefs in the back of his head, and I think that's been one of the big mysteries of this trial: is how did this kid with so much potential go down this road? And the big question was, we'd hear from his college, his high school teachers, elementary school teachers. We'd hear from his friends. But when the prosecutors asked, did you ever know he was watching these violent videos, jihadi videos on his computer, they all said no.
Right. Now, so does the jury has a case now. Do they start deliberating today on what the sentence will be?
No, they actually get the case Wednesday. There will be instructions on, there'll be there's a lot of mitigating, aggravating. The verdict sheet for a death penalty trial is quite complex.
Yes.
So they'll have to go through the instructions on that. They'll hear some closing arguments, and they could get the case Wednesday afternoon.
Right. And is it, final question, is it an uphill battle to get people in Massachusetts, where the death penalty has been illegal for so long, to vote for the death penalty?
I think it'll be, it's always an uphill battle. The threshold is a unanimous jury.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be difficult in every case. You think of Zachariah Masawi, September 11th hijacker. They spared his life because one juror wouldn't sentence him to death. It was 11-1. So I think the threshold is high within itself. This is a jury. You mentioned earlier that you're against the death penalty. You wouldn't be on this jury. Everyone who was on this jury had to sit there and say yes, they could hand out the death penalty if it was warranted, but they would be open, keep an open mind in both phases of the trial. And I'll tell you that some jurors sat there and said they thought life in prison would be a worse punishment. That death would be. There was one juror who said death would be relieving his soul of the burden of what he did. So some jurors are sitting there thinking that life in prison could be worse. And that's, the last couple of days of this trial has been the most critical testimony, because we're hearing from the prison experts who describe what life in prison would be. So we've seen jurors paying attention at most during this trial, this part of the trial, taking notes, because I think it's going to come down to what they think his punishment should be. And they may be unanimous, they may not be, but I think the definition of worst punishment is going to be a key factor.
Fascinating to watch. Hey, Milton, great reporting on this, and it's so good of you to give us some time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Milton Valencia, great reporter he's the Metro reporter for the Boston Globe at bostonglobe.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour now here on a Tuesday, May 12. At the top of the next hour, Director of the Lands Protection Program for the Sierra Club, Athan Manuel, joins us here in studio. No, actually, on our newsline to talk about the president's announcement yesterday, or the administration's announcement about new drilling up in the Arctic Ocean. Sierra Club very much opposed to that. And then Niall Stanage from The Hill will be joining us here in studio to talk about the big events this today in the Capitol this week. One on TPP, vote today, and the Senate's going to have to make a decision on the Patriot Act. Senate and the House make a decision on the Patriot Act before June 1. Meanwhile, as we start out talking with Milton Valencia, the big news in the sports world, of course, is the NFL. Everybody said that they had to do something. They couldn't just let Tom Brady and the Patriots walk away from Deflategate, as we call it, or Deflategate, particularly after the NFL's report written by attorney Tom Wells came out that just really blasted both Brady and the Patriots. And even though they said they did not have the smoking gun, what was the phrase? It was more probable than not.
Yes.
Right? That they had deliberately lowered the pressure in the balls in that game against the Colts at the direction of Tom Brady. They named the equipment manager and his assistant who actually did it. And the emails back and forth seemed to prove, gave them proof enough that they were guilty, if you will. So the punishment came down yesterday. They dropped the other shoe yesterday. 4-game suspension for Tom Brady without pay, which means, I heard last night, $2 million in salary.
Man.
And then that lost. And a $1 million fine for the Patriots. And it was
and they're taking away 2 draft picks.
And taking away 2 draft picks, which is also a big deal, I guess.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah. And the NFL said that they were being punished not only for breaking the rules, but also for not cooperating with the investigation, because Brady would not he would not hand over his email, his electronic records.
Yeah.
Which does make you wonder.
It certainly makes you wonder.
Yeah. There were comments from a lot of people in the sports world, including Eli Manning, quarterback for the Giants, of course, said hates to see this happen.
I don't like to see anybody get suspended. I don't like to see anybody get in trouble. I don't like to see anything happen to the NFL or to a player or to another quarterback. So I guess I'm in no way am I glad to see this happen.
But Manning goes on to say, you break the rules, you pay the price.
I think it is about integrity, and you have to follow the rules. And so, if someone's breaking rules, I understand. You're gonna get punished for it.
Okay, you are our sports editor, Mr. Ogburn.
I'm a little all over the place on this one. I think that there was no way that they could get away with not fining, or suspending Tom Brady. I think that they were going to have to suspend him.
There had to be something. There had to be some price.
I'm a little concerned. I mean, $1 million fine onto the Patriots and them losing 2 draft picks.
That's spare change for the Patriots.
That's a big deal. I know the $1 million, yeah, you say it's spare change.
It is.
In the grand scheme of things, that's a huge fine. That is a big, big fine.
Not a lot of money for the Patriots.
It's plenty. It's $1 million.
But what do they make? They make $1 billion a year.
That's not the point. It's still a lot of money. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's a lot of money. I'm not going to downplay that $1 million is not a lot of money. It's a lot of money for any organization. The 2 draft picks, I think, is pretty severe. I would have rather seen them just say, if they're going to suspend Brady, just put it all on Brady. Just put it all on Tom Brady, because I do think that they still weren't able to prove that this was him that was behind it. It certainly looks like it. And if they were going to go for a big suspension, maybe go 8 games, and then just say, we're putting this all on Tom Brady, he was not cooperative, make that the big feature. Because I think at the end of the day, this whole deflating footballs thing is such a minor issue. But the being evasive and not handing stuff over and not cooperating and going out and lying about it, I think I could have seen him get an 8-game suspension and then just leave the Patriots out of it. But I think that that's also bad for business for the NFL, because Tom Brady's one of their biggest stars.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's a really tricky, messy situation.
as the non-sports fan, I think first of all, there had to be the NFL had to act. They couldn't just ignore it for their own sake. And I think they got it just about right.
Yeah.
I think they went after both. I think they had to go after the team as well. Brady's part of the team. That there was sort of there were more people than Brady involved. Not the coach, by the way. The coach, no word about him.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. And
because he's got a history of this kind of stuff.
Yes, he does. But I think in this case, we can believe that he was not involved at all. And the thing will be appealed, but I think crybaby. We haven't heard from Tom Brady yet.
Not yet.
Maybe I shouldn't call him.
Well, he had.
I just hope he would take his point. Before
he had an interview a couple nights ago on stage. We haven't heard since the.
He was still digesting it then.
Yeah, but this is going to be interesting to see how he comes back.
Yeah.
Against us, because if he comes back and he's a smug, jerk about it, which he has been about this the whole time.
Yeah.
He's not going to do himself any favors.
But he ought to come out and say he's sorry and I take my punishment like a man.
Boom. Move on.
President Obama, what's he up to today? We'll tell you when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, hour number 2 winding down. Hour number 3 coming up. Remember, you're going to have to wait on Free Speech TV until 5 o'clock Eastern to be able to watch that third hour. But you can watch it right away, live on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Well, President Obama stunned environmentalists yesterday and disappointed environmentalists by agreeing to allow Shell Oil to drill for oil up off the Arctic. We'll talk to a representative of the Sierra Club at the top of the next hour about why that is bad and dangerous for the environment. And then Niall Stanage from The Hill joins us. Hour number 3 coming up on Free Speech and on TawkrTV.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Okay, at the top of the next hour, Sierra Club on Arctic drilling. President Obama, after he gets a briefing today at 11:30, he'll be over at Georgetown University. to talk about poverty. Comes back this afternoon. He meets with Defense Secretary Carter, and our briefing with Josh Earnest today at 12:30. Hour number 3 coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. And they barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Breaking news, Verizon buying AOL for $4.4 billion, announced just a few moments ago. Wow, another consolidation. Good for consumers or not? Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Tuesday, May 12th. This is the Bill Press Show. You are either listening on your local progressive talk radio station, and we welcome you wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, or you're watching on Free Speech TV. We welcome you as well. Good to see you today. Or watching on our video stream here in the United States or around the world. Anywhere you have an electronic device, you can be with us on TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll tell you what's going on, and you tell us what you think about it. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show, or just do it the old-fashioned way. Pick up the phone, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Maybe Verizon has a cut rate today for phone calls. I'm not sure. Or they may not have any money left over after buying AOL for $4.4 billion. Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy on Team Press here. What do you say, guys?
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, good morning.
Whose number is 21?
The God, Tim Duncan. Big fun. Big fundamental from the San Antonio Spurs, even though they're out. I'm still watching a lot of NBA basketball. Somewhere my
Deion Sanders.
No, get out of here with your Deion Sanders.
I don't know. I mean,
look. See, in the back.
Oh, I see. Tim Duncan, is that it? Okay.
Right there.
All right, good.
Still clinging to the
I know you've been
T-shirt.
wondering about that all morning, huh?
Do you know how much you'd have to pay me to wear a shirt like that? You could not. There is not enough money.
I have
$4.4 billion. Here
we go.
I wouldn't put that shirt on.
I have two pieces of gear that I wear. I wear this Tim Duncan shirt that Cyprian got me, and I have an Abby Wambach jersey.
Yeah.
Those are two things I wear.
You're 12 years old?
He's actually wearing his son's shirt today.
I think
Damn.
Yeah. Jamie Benson here on the phones.
Roasted here.
I'm not going to talk about what he's wearing today. 866-55-PRESS is how you reach him. And Cyprian Bolding, who planted this shirt on Peter and tricked him into wearing it, is our videographer for the day. Yeah, I know. It's a tough day. Tough day around here. All right. Arctic drilling. Yesterday in the middle of the briefing, this news broke, and somebody just barked out to Josh Ernest, Arctic drilling! And Josh went, what? What are you talking about? It's Arctic drilling! And Josh said, I don't know what you're talking about. So, anyhow, but we'll find out what it's all about. With a representative from the Sierra Club here at the top, right at the top of this hour. Then Niall Stanage, associate editor from The Hill, will join us at the half. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Hi, everyone. Just a couple of other stories making news. Here I sit. All right. You're never going to believe this story, Bill. George Zimmerman is in a little bit of trouble. He got shot in the face yesterday.
No, not George Zimmerman.
Not George Zimmerman. I know. Another gun story, another day of George Zimmerman being involved in a shooting.
Four incidents.
Four situations now.
Since Trayvon Martin. Police were called to a shooting near Orlando in a place called Lake Mary, Florida, just outside of Orlando. A man who had argued with George Zimmerman in a road rage incident found him and discharged his gun. Now, there's still a lot of issues as to what exactly happened. Or which one shot.
Who shot first, who had a gun. One witness said that George Zimmerman was out of the car with a gun in his hand. The police report hasn't really indicated that, but...
And these two guys were in some kind of a battle beforehand.
Exactly.
Right there.
They had some issues in the past. So,
do you think George Zimmerman might be trouble?
I think he might be trouble. I think he might be bad luck.
Maybe the fourth incident, maybe he's a little trouble.
Yeah, you know the old saying, fourth times with a gun charge is the charm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Something like that. Chris Christie is maybe the nation's biggest sports fan. You want to know how much he loves sports? He spent thousands of dollars at New York Giants and Jets and Met games. Turns out there were 58 different occasions that Christie spent $82,594, which operates concessions at MetLife Stadium. Those are taxpayer dollars that he used to buy concessions at games. Mm-hmm. Over 58 different occasions. Is what
I would love it if I'm a New Jersey taxpayer to know that my tax dollars went to buy hot dogs for Chris Christie.
And remember, one of those games, he brought Mitt Romney with him. So maybe that's it. Romney brought his family.
Freeloaders.
And that's why it was so much.
Freaking freeloaders.
While we're talking football, boy, not a great day for New England Patriots fans, because yesterday it turns out Aaron Hernandez, who's currently serving in prison for a murder, was charged again. A new charge in connection to a 2012 double murder. He was charged with witness intimidation for allegedly shooting a witness to the 2012 homicides of two men. Now, they're saying that Hernandez shot the man in the head. The man did not die, so he's alive to tell the story. But more charges for Aaron Hernandez. He's not getting out of jail, I guess. We can just put it that way.
And that got no news at all because the big news was Tom Brady getting suspended for 4 games.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go.
You got it. Yes, indeed. As I mentioned, the news broke during the White House briefing yesterday about drilling for oil in the Arctic Ocean. The Obama administration giving its approval to Royal Dutch Shell and their plan to drill for oil and natural gas. As early as this summer up in the Arctic Ocean, Athan Manuel is director of the Lands Protection Program for the Sierra Club, joining us on our news line this morning. Athan, good to have you with us. Tell us exactly where this drilling would, proposed drilling would take place.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Bill. I appreciate that. Great lead-in, too. Great stuff you guys are talking about this morning.
Oh, thanks.
Well, it's in the Chukchi Sea, which is part of the Arctic Ocean. It's northwest. It's off the northwest coast of Alaska, and it's almost at the end of the Earth. It's way above the Arctic Circle. It's in one of the most inhospitable places you would ever look for oil. You know, it's dark. There's lots of sea ice, obviously. It's a very pristine ecosystem that's never had any industrial activity. So it's about 35, 40 miles off the coast of Alaska. So it's pretty far away from any kind of infrastructure, any kind of oil activity at all. So it's really one of the last places we should be drilling for oil.
What is the environmental risk that you see up in that area?
Well, for years they never drilled or even thought about drilling in the Arctic Ocean because of the sea ice. But now with global warming, which is kind of a cruel irony here, global warming is starting to melt the sea ice there and makes it possible for drill ships to operate in the Chukchi and the Beaufort Seas during the summer. So that's when they're hoping. So they're hoping to do it this summer. But the biggest threat is really sea ice. You have even in the summertime, you have huge chunks of ice floating through the ocean, tumbling through the tides there. And so the biggest problem is that the sea ice could rupture a pipeline or hit a ship. And so the biggest threat is an oil spill. And if an oil spill occurs in that kind of inhospitable ecosystem, there's almost no way to clean it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you even start? How could you possibly clean it up in that part of the world?
They couldn't, and most of the oil is never recovered from an oil spill, no matter where it's done, in the Gulf of Mexico or anywhere else, and so it would be virtually impossible. And one government estimate says that there's probably up to a 75% chance of an oil spill happening if Shell puts a production platform there, a permanent oil rig. So it's really the last place to drill. It doesn't make any sense to drill in that kind of dangerous condition where you can never clean up the oil. And one of the other problems there is that there's no real big port. On the north slope of Alaska, it's not like New Orleans or Mobile or any of these other, Houston, where you have a huge infrastructure of ports and boats and people who can go out and clean up a spill. None of that exists in Alaska. So it's a very risky proposition. It's really a bad idea from the environmental standpoint. It's also a bad idea. It just kind of contradicts a lot of the great work the Obama administration has done on climate. No president has done more on fighting climate change than this president has, but now we're continuing to allow new offshore drilling for a fossil fuel that obviously causes climate change.
Now, I would imagine, just given where it is, that this is deep water drilling, right?
Well, it's not that deep. At that part of it's not like the Gulf of Mexico where the Deepwater Horizon happened. It's not
really
super deep water because that part of the world, it's just not that. It's not that you don't see that same kind of deep water ecosystem that you had in the Gulf of Mexico. This is relatively shallow, but the bigger problem is it's just lots of ice, no onshore facilities. The nearest Coast Guard port is 1,000 miles away. So
whoa.
So it's really in the middle of nowhere, and it's the last place we should be drilling.
Then how would they get this oil and gas to port?
Well, they just want to do test wells this summer to see if they can even find enough oil to make it economically recoverable. But that's a good question. We don't know how they would do it. I think they would love to be able to build a subsea pipeline that goes from the Chukchi, 35 miles to the mainland of Alaska. But even that would be an unbelievable task to try and do that again in those kind of icy Arctic conditions. They probably would want to try and tanker it out then, but again, that's dangerous and risky and slow to get oil out. So the whole thing kind of looks really weird, even from an oil industry perspective.
Yeah.
So I think Shell is desperate for oil. They got caught 8 or 10 years ago overstating how many reserves they had on hand, and so they're desperate to find any new oil anywhere in the world. That's why they're going after riskier projects like this one.
Well, Shell's record in this part of the world, too, is a little tarnished, isn't it? Didn't they have a problem with a rig getting loose or something a few years ago?
Well, they bought this lease under the Bush administration, so this is a little time bomb that the Bush administration left off the coast of Alaska from when they were in office. And they bought this lease in 2006, and they tried to first drill it in 2012. So they had 6 years to get ready, and when they tried to drill there in 2012, they completely screwed it up. Their containment dome was crushed like a beer can. The drilling rig did come unmoored and almost crashed on shore when they were towing it up there. Their whole experience in 2012 kind of reinforced all the points we've been making, that this is a very dangerous place to operate in, and this company's clearly not up to the task. So they've had one dry run, and they failed miserably. We'll see what they do this summer, but we're nervous because these guys haven't shown that they're very responsible when it comes to drilling in that part of the world, and the consequences could be huge.
Is there any connection to the, what is it called, the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline, or...
Yeah, well, that's the 800-pound gorilla or 800-mile gorilla, I should say, in Alaska, that runs from Prudhoe Bay down to the port of Valdez in Alaska. And that's how the state of Alaska generates most of its revenue. The tax on every barrel of oil that goes through it.
So can they tap into that?
Well, that's what they want to go. They eventually probably will want to tie into taps if they can, but they don't know yet. I mean, they have no idea. These guys are they want to see if there's oil there at all, but it may be easier for them to tanker it out and ship it to Tacoma or Korea or Japan and have it refined there. Because again, you'd have to build there's no port in Prudhoe Bay, so you couldn't take a super tanker and dock it at Prudhoe Bay and unload the oil there. Not yet, at least.
Yeah.
So they'd have to build a pipeline, which would be another. I mean, it's just 35 miles to get from the Chukchi Sea to the mainland of Alaska. You'd have to build another 100-mile pipeline from where they come on shore to Prudhoe Bay to get into taps. So there's a lot of engineering left undetermined on how they're going to get this oil out or to market.
Do we know, is there like sufficient oil or natural gas even to merit all of this expense and environmental risk?
Well, they seem to use, they have some estimates of how much is there, but no one really knows for sure. No one knows until they put a straw in the ground down there.
And this area is even more remote than Anwar, right?
Oh, yeah, much more remote. I mean, it's hard to overstate how remote this area is. There's nothing out there except, it's an incredible resource for marine mammals and for fish. It's a very healthy ecosystem and supports lots of charismatic mammals and whales. But it's not the Arctic Refuge. It's pretty easy to get to. I've been to the Arctic Refuge, but it's really, really hard to get out to the Chukchi Sea. It is really very, very remote.
What's ironic about this, or maybe troubling, I guess, is that, as you point out, President Obama has done more for the environment, certainly more for climate change than any other president. And yet there's this, all of the above, right, is his energy policy. And every once in a while they just keep, going in the fossil fuel direction, like here, right?
Yeah, from our perspective, we're lucky we're happy that they have finally stopped saying all the above. But that almost makes it worse, because all he talks about now is climate change and the steps we need to take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Mm-hmm. And we do hope that eventually, this is still the first step in developing this field. This is not a guarantee that Shell is going to industrialize that part of the country or that part of the ocean and produce lots of oil there. There's other places where they can still stop it. So we haven't given up on the president and the administration stepping in and eventually killing this thing. But there's no way you would, the president has said repeatedly that if we're serious about fighting climate change, if we don't want to burn up the planet, we need to keep 2/3 of the fossil fuels that are undeveloped in the ground right now. We can't develop those. And so that's what we think, that's the standard we think you should apply to this project. And
absolutely. If you're going in that direction, you've got to go in that direction, and stop taking these little detours every once in a while. And I'm sure if people want to join in and find out more about it, and also find out ways that they can put some pressure on so that this will never happen, go to sierraclub.org. Hey, Athan, good to have you with us today. Thanks for your good work.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bill. Thanks.
All right. Member of the Sierra Club for many, many, many years. They do great work, taking the lead on this for sure. Again, it's sierraclub.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small fins for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. my hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Jonah found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Jonah put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Jonah took me to Hamro Gar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At 26 minutes after the hour, we will be joined by Niall Stanage from the Hill newspaper, coming up in the next half hour here in studio with us. One story is kind of lingering around from yesterday, but still getting a lot of attention. There was a graduation ceremony, I guess. There was some big ceremony down in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Yeah, it was a graduation thing.
I thought so, at the high school down there. And there was one speaker, I guess, who was not on the program and started speaking, and people were not happy, and a lot of them started to get up and leave. The principal who had invited the speaker is very, very upset. She's actually the founder of this school. She stood up. Nancy Gordick is her name. She stood up and berated the audience and called out, listen carefully, called out the people who were leaving.
You people are being so rude to not listen to this speech. It was my fault that we missed it in the program. Look who's leaving, all the black people.
Look who's leaving. All the blacks? Yeah. This is a Christian school, apparently, because the woman, Nancy Gordick, she later appropriately apologized for that outburst, but she said the demon possessed her at that time.
Boy, I hate when that happens.
I know. Yeah,
I do too.
Especially at graduations.
Yeah, right. She got upset. Yeah. You dumb people, stay here, right? My fault that's not in the program, and then, hey, look who's leaving. Oh, man.
All the black people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
Georgia, maybe. What do you expect? Niall Stanage coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, May 12, The Bill Press Show here in Washington, D.C. is where you'll find us. in our studio on Capitol Hill, but of course we are there with you in every corner of America on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. And we're brought to you today by the International Association of, count them, sheet metal, air, rail, and transportation workers, all together in one union called the SMART Union. And the good men and women of the SMART Union under President Joseph Sellers, their new president, giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Find out more about their good work at their website, smart-union.org. Big day, maybe a showdown day for President Obama at the Capitol today when the Senate takes up his request for fast-track authority to negotiate a new trade deal with 12 Asian nations. And not clear whether he's got enough votes of Democrats to get it through. Niall Stanage covers, just everything happening in Washington, whether it's the White House or the agencies or the Congress. You find out about it in The Hill. Associate Editor Niall Stanage in studio with us. Niall, it's good to see you.
Thanks, Bill. Good to see you, too.
I think the last time I saw you was at the great big Hill party for the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Absolutely.
It was a great event.
Ourselves and all the other beautiful people, Bill. What can I say?
Yeah, I know. They even had a red carpet. You had to walk to get in and everything. Yeah, no, it was a great event. Just before, I have to ask you, just before the vote on TPP today, Elizabeth Warren and New York Mayor Bill de Blasio have an event at the press club this morning, and then they're continuing up outside the Capitol today for reporters to unveil a contract with America. Echoes of Newt Gingrich, right? But this is from the left.
Yeah.
What's it all about?
Well, it's an interesting thing that these two figures are coming together. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is clearly already a national figure on the left, very beloved by the left.
Yeah.
Bill de Blasio has that status in New York, at least, or in the Northeast, and I think is seeking to become a national figure, and his election was seen very much in that sort of light in New York. So it's interesting that they should come together to make this pledge, as it were, to put forth this contract. And I think it's part of a broader picture that you're seeing of the left becoming more assertive and trying to really press its case. And we've seen that in the presidential race as well, not just with Bernie Sanders coming in, but in sort of pressure being exerted on Hillary Clinton to be less of a centrist than she's been in the past. So you have all these kind of factors going on, percolating nationally. It's an interesting time.
Well, it's particularly interesting that de Blasio and Elizabeth Warren would do this. They are not running for president, but clearly their efforts are directed toward influencing the 2016 presidential race on the side, right?
Sure.
Bernie Sanders. You can't get to the left of Bernie Sanders, and he and Elizabeth Warren really, as I said in my column last week, they really see eye to eye on these issues, and they all talk about the same issues. The only difference is she's afraid of, in my opinion, she's afraid of running against Hillary, and he's not. But so Bernie will certainly salute this, but the question is, what will Hillary say, and what will she do?
Yeah, and it's a tricky issue for her because, in general, she is trying to clearly appeal to the left. She's trying to placate the left so that, no one, Bernie or anyone else, becomes a really serious challenger to her for the Democratic nomination. But we started this conversation talking about TPP. I mean, that's an issue, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a couple of minutes, where Hillary has not really declared a position one way or other. It's a big issue for the left for reasons that we will also get into. And that's an example of one of the places where this kind of pressure can be applied to her by, be it Senator Warren or Bill de Blasio or Senator Sanders, anyone else.
No, I know. I look forward to, I hope to get over there this afternoon at the Capitol, but certainly look forward to reading and seeing what's contained in this contract with America. So the first test, as we've talked about, is today, where the Senate will take up the president's request for fast-track authority. He's got the Republican votes, but even if he had every Republican, which he doesn't, he still needs some Democratic votes. So is he helping or hurting his cause when he dismisses Elizabeth Warren as just another politician?
I think it's very questionable. I think it's the suggestion is that he could actually end up hurting his cause within the Senate and within the broader progressive community. He has been pretty assertive in saying that Elizabeth Warren is simply wrong on this issue. He's made the point that he agrees with her on lots of things, but he's argued that she's wrong on this.
This one, right.
On this. Now, I mean, there are some specifics that, to me, trying to maintain objectivity, his case doesn't seem fully convincing. One of the left's main objections to this agreement, for example, is the idea that corporations could sue along a track that gives them kind of super judicial or extra.
This is this arbitration panel, right? But they can actually. I mean, I think that's it's really what we know about it is that a corporation could sue a foreign government or our government because they think the law affecting their activity goes too far.
Right.
For example, country bans smoking in public places, right? A tobacco company could go to this arbitration panel and say that's hurting our bottom line too much. It's not fair. And this arbitration panel could overrule the sovereignty of the law of that other country, right? I mean, that's huge.
No, absolutely. And of course, the actual specifics of this deal are pretty much secret for the moment, which doesn't reassure anyone. But the point that you raise is a very important one. And President Obama came out and he sort of said, well, you know, people who think that the United States will be sued are wrong. That won't happen. But whether the United States specifically will be sued is only a part of the progressive or liberal objection to this idea. The real objection in principle is giving corporations power to transcend or circumvent the laws of any sovereign nation that is a signatory to this kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, if you are a progressive in this country, you don't necessarily want an oil company, for example, to challenge name a country, you know, Uruguay or Paraguay or Peru or something, and say we should be able to drill off their coast.
Right. Right.
And this arbitration panel said, yeah, you can drill anywhere you want in Latin America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of a bigger picture. You know, we were also talking about the Warren de Blasio thing and the left in general. I think that particular provision of this proposed agreement plays in very much to a very deep concern about increased corporate power. That's been a concern, of course, for decades. Continues to be one, and a more acute one as time goes by.
I believe that a great part of the difficulty with this issue lies in the fact that it's a secret document. And the White House keeps saying, which we heard Josh Earnest say again yesterday at our briefing, look, if Elizabeth Warren doesn't like it, she can just go in and read it. Anybody who wants to, any member of Congress wants to, can go in that little room and they can read this document. And that's what she ought to do. One reporter pointed out that she actually did that. Now, I don't know how many of 435 members of the House or 100 members of the Senate have done so, but they can. But that's hardly making the document public.
No.
You know, you can't read it.
Right.
I can't read it. Right. The American public can't read it. Reporters can't read it. And members of Congress can only read it with no recording equipment, no camera, no notes, no paper, no pen, no staff. They have to they've read in whatever it is, 1,500 pages.
Right.
So.
While this document is kept in a secure room, whatever that means. So
right.
all of that.
And they can't talk about it when they leave.
Right. So all of that just fuels suspicion, and understandably so.
So why don't they just release it?
I actually know the answer to that. I mean, I think their argument is that the terms are still being negotiated and therefore they don't want to have that endangered by it being litigated in public. But, of course, the suspicion is that the reason they don't want to release it is because there's unpleasant or unacceptable things in it. So, you know, we shall see.
Yeah, the argument was made yesterday, too, by Josh Earnest at our briefing. But this morning, you look at legislation that's winding its way through Congress. We can all read it.
Right.
It's not final. It's in draft form. It's going to change. But at least it's out there.
Yeah.
This is the people's business. I think people ought to be able to see the document. But I think it would help the administration a lot if they could say, no, here it is, page so and so. Look at this. Go by the actual wording and the facts rather than just accusations flying back and forth.
Yeah, pretty much so. And also, I think any time an administration, or for that matter, anyone in power says, trust us, it'll be okay, that, is not taken at face value by a large number of people, and quite rightly not. So, that's a problem for the administration.
It may have worked at one time.
It may have, maybe 300 years ago, perhaps, or maybe 10 years ago or so, but
not today.
But not today.
All right, Niall Stanage with us from the Hill. TPP, and then the Congress has a big challenge facing it with what to do about the NSA, too, after last week's court ruling. Lots going on here in our nation's capital, lots to talk about, and lots you may want to weigh in on at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes before the top of the hour, in studio with us, Niall Stanage is associate editor for The Hill, a great newspaper. Check out today's Hill for my column about NSA. Go to thehill.com. Yeah, I certainly have a little bias when it comes to The Hill. Niall Stanage, and we've been talking about the TPP. Before we move on, Niall, Phyllis from out in Chicago on WCPT has a quick question or comment. Hi, Phyllis.
Hi there, Bill.
What do you think?
I have a quick question. I think it's terrible. I think our president has forgotten the people and working for the corporations. It's not right. He doesn't listen to us.
You're talking about the TPP, huh?
Oh, yes,
right.
I am, and fast track.
And fast track, right. It is, thanks, Phyllis, for the call. It is one where, with the history of NAFTA and the other trade deals where people are saying, let's not rush into another one. Now, and that's one issue. And the other issue, I think, is I find it almost contradictory on the part of Republicans who have actually sued President Obama for using his executive authority to do something about Obamacare and immigration. Now want to give him all the executive authority he wants to do a trade deal.
Yeah. You can have as much power as you want as long as you do what we want with it, basically. But if you're doing something that we don't want, then that'll be a terrible abuse of the constitutional authorities.
Right. And I think that were I in Congress, liberal or conservative or independent, I'd have to say, no, Congress has a role in these trade deals. I don't want to cede all the congressional authority to any president, no matter who it is, even if I like him, even if he's a member of my party.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, there has been a strange tradition of giving, I think, some degree of fast-track authority to presidents.
There has been.
I'm not quite clear why that is. I mean, particularly when members of both parties in Congress in recent years have complained about the dilution of congressional power or the sidelining of Congress on a whole number of matters. So it's a strange issue.
Now, somewhat related is the NSA massive mega data collection, where George Bush, originally by executive authority, without going to the FISA court right after September 11, ordered or authorized NSA to do this wiretapping of any conversations between anyone in this country and somebody overseas, since expanded under President Obama, and I guess started under Bush, actually, to capturing the mega data on every phone call, every email, every text and everything, which now a federal court has said is illegal. That Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which they were using to justify this mega spying, it doesn't go that far. It does not authorize that. So this Section 215 expires June 1. What's Congress going to do about it?
Well, it might well try to renew it. I mean, there is an effort to renew it.
Mitch McConnell says, yeah, keep it going. Right?
Absolutely. Now, I am actually not totally clear on the legal process there as to how, presumably, the legal case would go to a higher court if Congress did indeed renew this with the same provision still in it. Now, it is interesting in the context of 2016 that we have at least a couple of Republicans who are, particularly Rand Paul, who are deeply skeptical of the NSA in general and this provision in particular. Yeah. And apparently there was an interview that Rand Paul gave to a New Hampshire newspaper yesterday in which he said that he would try to filibuster a renewal of this.
By the way, so speaking of Rand Paul, you have recently written in The Hill about the identifying the top 10 contenders. Is Ben Carson in the list?
Ben Carson is in the list, but he's quite low down.
I'm surprised that he's even made the list.
But by the time you get to 8, 9, or 10, I'm not sure how credible people's chances of actually winning the presidency are. Although now we have...
You have him 7, actually, Ben Carson.
Okay.
8, Carly Fiorina. 9, Chris Christie, and 10, Rick Perry.
Right, exactly. I think that Chris Christie's chances look pretty dim at the moment. He has been suffering in all sorts of ways. And there is, in any event, a question as to whether there's really a constituency within the Republican Party that would elect Chris Christie.
The others, Mark, I don't know whether it's in any particular order, but
it is, yeah.
Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz, the top 6, of whom you think Marco Rubio right now is the front runner rather than Jeb?
Yeah, we do actually. We think that Jeb Bush has been obviously someone who has an enormous amount of money, enormous amount of name recognition, but his poll ratings are not prohibitively great, either nationally or in the crucial states. Marco Rubio seemed to have a very smooth campaign launch. He obviously is representative of a younger generation. He's the son of Cuban immigrants, which gives him a certain, at least potential demographic appeal. So at the moment, we feel that he is slightly ahead of Jeb Bush, but of course, there's a very, very long time to go.
Well, if you talk to him, you could ask him what his favorite Cuban food is, his favorite Cuban music is, and
maybe don't do that.
I think we'd be better not repeating the mistakes of others. So I think we won't. We'll try and avoid
that. Line of questioning to professionals.
Yeah.
Air quotes. Professionals.
Yeah. Mark Halperin has apologized for that interview with Ted Cruz,
which was pretty awful.
All right. Hey, you want to? We just scratched the surface here. You want to find all about what's going on again? Don't forget, go to thehill.com, the good work of Niall Stanage and Bob Cusack and all the others there at The Hill. Thank you, Niall, for coming in again today.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Parting shot coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. Well, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yep, it ain't pretty anymore. The debate over TPP is getting personal. President Obama aiming most of his barbs at Elizabeth Warren. Of course, he said she's wrong, just wrong about TPP. But last week, to Matt Bai of Yahoo News, he went even further, saying the truth of the matter is, you know, that Elizabeth is a politician like everybody else. In other words, she's a politician, therefore you can't trust what she says because she's probably not telling the truth. Is that what the president means? I mean, does that mean Rosa DeLauro, Bernie Sanders, and all the rest are liars too? Well, that name-calling seems to me there are two ways that President Obama can resolve this difference of opinion over TPP. Number one, debate Elizabeth Warren on TPP, just like Al Gore debated Ross Perot over NAFTA. And two, release the full draft publicly so that we can all read it and decide for ourselves who's right and who's wrong about the TPP. Short of that, I'll trust Elizabeth Warren. That's it for today, folks. Come back and see us tomorrow. We'll be looking for you.